Hey, I'm Shamar.
And I'm Andrew.
We're going to be doing a deep dive on all the connected DC animated movies and their cinematic universe.
Yes, I'm here to discuss the interconnected storylines and point out how jacked everybody is.
And I'm here to share deep comic book knowledge like Batman having his own sneaker line.
So check out yet another DC animated podcast.
Part of the Forgotten Entertainment family and coming soon wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hi, everyone. Master Jedi Colleen here, co-host of Bohemian Geek Studies and yet another Star Wars podcast. But I'm not only a podcaster, I'm also an author. My second novel was published last fall, and it debuted as #1 horror novel on Amazon, which was really cool. If you like Stephen King, weird happenings in small towns, or just looking for a new writer, give my novel, The Falls, a try. It's set in Minnesota, where everyone wears that nice facade. Nothing is ever what it seems. Find The Falls by Colleen McMillan on Amazon and the Between the Lines publishing website.
Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
I was gonna say, like, the whole point of Star Wars is to get him to shoot those friggin' things to kill the Death Star. You're talking about the whole design of that movie.
I'm a little.
Things didn't go the way you thought.
No, I'm just a little.
Stallone's playing soccer?
Yeah.
What's going on? I'm watching this.
I saw that at a very young age, and I didn't.
You're coming at me hard.
I'm not coming at you hard.
Yeah, you are.
I just don't believe her choices. Her choices are ridiculous.
Give me an emotion.
Hi, I'm Mike Butler.
And I'm Mike Field.
And you're listening to the Forgotten Cinema Podcast. Each episode, we highlight a film that, for a variety of reasons, was forgotten by audiences. Whether it be because a more popular movie was released at the same time, or the film simply didn't catch on with an audience in its initial run. We'll discuss what we love about the movie, or maybe don't love about it, but we'll always recommend you revisit it. You never know. You might find your own forgotten gem. If you enjoy our podcast, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. What's going on?
How you doing?
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
I mean, not to the listeners, though.
Well, no, of course. I was going to explain that. We have not been recording for about a month now, right?
It's been about a month.
Yeah, so we are
more than a month.
Our famed 10-episode cushion is no more. But we will be endeavoring to increase that back to 10.
We'll get back to that.
But we took the month off for a variety of reasons, holidays and whatnot, and personal stuff, the good stuff, all good stuff. I don't know.
Was it good stuff?
Well, I mean, I don't want to air people's business. So.
It was all right.
But yeah, so but we're back. But we've already been here for you. So
exactly.
So, yes. So what are we doing today, Butler?
Oh, we are doing a movie that
Do you not remember? No, we were talking about it.
I think you get the year back up. We're doing a movie that I think a lot of people are going to say that's not forgotten, but
they can stick it.
We're going to tell you why it's forgotten.
Ooh.
Obviously. The 1989 film Glory by Edward Zwick.
Right. Cue the James Horner music. Following the Battle of Antietam, Colonel Robert Gould Shaw is offered command of the United States' first all-African-American regiment, the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry. With junior officer Cabot Forbes, Shaw puts together a strong and proud unit, including the escaped slave Tripp and the wise gravedigger John Rawlins. At first limited to menial manual tasks, the regiment fights to be placed in the heat of the battle. It's a decent synopsis.
It's pretty quick, but yeah.
I don't think I would have focused on. I don't know. It was okay. It's a fine synopsis. So Glory has a runtime of 122 minutes. It's rated R. Production budget of $18 million. It has 2 release dates. So it's a limited release date. This is when we say 1989. It's because it's a limited release date for Friday, December 15th, 1989. But the limited is like 3 locations. But that counts. So. And its wide release date is the 16th of February, 1990, which is probably when most people saw it in the winter.
Yeah, gotta get those Oscar nods.
Right. So I will do 2 different movie releases in terms of like what came out both those weeks. So,
okay.
So just when you didn't like how long the facts were, they're longer. Opening weekend, I'm talking about the limited release. It did $63,000, which makes sense because, It's only 3 locations. It's wide release date. So that weekend it came out, the 16th, which is President's Day weekend. It did $2.6 million that weekend. But up to that point, from the limited release date in December to February, its theaters increased and increased and increased. So it wasn't like it just came out in 3 locations.
Oh, and then went away. Okay, gotcha.
Right. So up to that point in February, it had already made $16 million. So by the time this weekend's over, it got back at least its production budget. Its domestic and worldwide are the same, so I don't believe it got a big international release. It finished off at about $26.9 million.
I doubt a lot of the world is interested in the American Civil War.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, but this movie
and Denzel Washington and stuff, they're not international names yet.
They're not huge. I understand that.
They will be.
So the production company is 2 of them. It's Freddie Fields Productions and TriStar Pictures, and this is distributed by TriStar Pictures. So I told you it came out on the 15th of December. So what you had, these are the Oscar movies or the big Christmas movies that come out. So people think coming to the theater. It went up against We're No Angels, Family Business. That's a Connery film. The Wizard, Blaze, and then in limited release, Driving Miss Daisy. So you had 2 Morgan Freeman films.
Wow, look at that.
I know, like in the same week. The 22nd of December, which is obviously right before Christmas, the Christmas holiday, Tango and Cash, which I did not realize that's
a holiday release.
I did not realize. I always peg that as a summer film.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You had the Spielberg movie Always, which is a lot of Spielberg haters always point to as being a bad movie. In a limited release, you had Born on the 4th of July, Music Box, and Roger and Me. That is a documentary by, I'm blanking on his name already, Michael Moore. Excuse me. And then on the 8th of December, which is the week before the 15th, obviously, you had She-Devil. That's Roseanne Barr. I don't know if she's Roseanne Arnold at this point. And The War of the Roses, which is the Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner divorce movie.
Mm-hmm.
Danny DeVito directed that, I believe.
Yep.
So then let's go to the wide release date, which was the 16th of February. It went up against Madhouse, Nightbreed, and Revenge. Nightbreed's a horror film. Revenge is the Costner film. Did you see any of those?
Nightbreed, the title sounds familiar,
Nightbreed
but
you
it just sounds kind of.
You haven't seen
generic.
Revenge? Revenge is actually not that bad.
I don't think I've seen Revenge. No.
Yeah, it's actually it's
I do
early.
like Costner.
It's early Costner. I was going to say Spielberg again. The 23rd of February, you had Men Don't Leave, The Blood of Heroes, Where the Heart Is, Angel Town, and the horror movie Spontaneous Combustion. I just want to see that now because of the title.
Where the Heart Is sounds familiar, but
Where the Heart Is with Paul Newman.
Yep. Okay.
The 9th of February, you had Hard to Kill, the Steven Seagal film, Loose Cannons, that is with Gene Hackman, and Stanley and Iris. So that covers both release dates. Obviously, it came up against more of a competition in the December area because you had a lot of big time movies in that period. Again, I'm still thrown by the Tango and Cash film, but being a 22nd of December, but whatever. This film, Glory, is directed by Edward Zwick. He has done Legends of the Fall, Pawn Sacrifice, and a movie that we covered a few seasons ago, The Last Samurai. He's won an Oscar for producing the movie Shakespeare in Love. This is written by Kevin Jari, who did Rambo First Blood Part 2, Tombstone, and The Devil's Own. He's actually in this movie as well. He's the guy that tells them to give him hell in the beginning, at the end, excuse me.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
That's cool. All right. He's the guy. So he's also the guy that they fight with.
Well, he's,
Midway.
kind of, yeah. Cinematography by Freddie Francis. He has won an Oscar for cinematography for Sons and Lovers. He's also done The Elephant Man, Cape Fear, and the 80s Dune? Yeah, it was in the 80s. The 80s Dune with Kyle MacLachlan, Butler's favorite. Composer James Horner was the composer. He's won an Oscar for Titanic. He's also been nominated for Field of Dreams, Aliens, A Beautiful Mind, to name a few.
He's a phenomenal.
Yes.
So this is one of his best scores for sure.
I should say that the score is also aided and also done by the Boys Choir of Harlem. They are a major part of the score, especially towards the end. Edited by Steven Rosenblum. He was nominated for an Oscar for Blood Diamond, Braveheart, and Pearl Harbor. He wasn't nominated for Pearl Harbor. Produced by Freddie Fields. No relation because there's an S at the end. He did Looking for Mr. Goodbar, Victory, Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, just to name a few. Did you ever see Victory? The Stallone playing soccer?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
It's a good movie.
Do you think that's forgotten?
That's probably one for the list. Absolutely. What about Looking for Mr. Goodbar?
I've heard of it, but I've
see. Looking for Mr. Goodbar and Victory are probably, even though they're different decades, they're probably good for the list for people that are younger than both of us, and you included, obviously,
right.
Mr. Goodbar. But yeah, I think a lot of I actually like doing the older films for Forgotten Cinema just because I know people before us or after us, excuse me, don't know these movies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how I came into Victory, was just like Stallone's playing soccer.
Yeah.
What's going on? I'm watching this.
I saw that at a very young age and I didn't get it. And then I saw it when I got older and I was like, oh, okay. They're in a prison camp.
I get it now. It's not fun in camps.
I understand. I always remember when the guy breaks his arm so that Stallone could play a goal.
Yep.
Oof. I was just to add that Edward Zwick hired a technical advisor for this movie to help with obviously the Civil War aspect and just kind of like to be
Authentic.
on the good side of authentic and the good side of history in terms of like what they're doing. And that person was Shelby Foote, and he has written the Civil War TV. He was an advisor for the Civil War TV show that Ken Burns did, the miniseries, and he's also done Shiloh, a novel. He's done a bunch of books, and he's a writer.
Did you watch that Civil War miniseries?
Because
I had meant to, and I didn't watch it.
No, I never really. Not a huge doc guy, but I do watch a few. I mean, would I go back? I should. I probably should watch it. I mean, but I don't know. I'm more of a fictional narrative person, I guess. I don't know. But I do like some docs. So you had Matthew Broderick as Colonel Robert Shaw. He's obviously from War Games, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Election. Denzel Washington as Private Tripp. He has won an Oscar for Training Day. He's also been nominated for Malcolm X and The Hurricane, to name a few. Cary Elwes as Cabot Forbes or Major Cabot Forbes. He's done Saw, The Princess Bride, and the remake Black Christmas that came out a couple years ago. Morgan Freeman as Sergeant Major John Rawlins, who's won an Oscar for $1 Million Baby. He's also nominated for Driving Miss Daisy, Shawshank Redemption, Invictus, and Street Smart. Jimmy Kennedy, I don't know if I said the name right. His Private Jupiter Sharts. I think that's the guy that was the sharpshooter.
Yep.
Okay. He didn't really do much after this. He's in the Dream Team and Gung Ho.
I saw that because when I was looking at him, I was like, he's good. But
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I don't. Well, maybe he just wasn't into it. Yeah. Andre Brauer as Corporal Thomas Searles.
Young Andre Brauer.
This is his feature film debut. I know him from Homicide: Life on the Street. That's when I first kind of knew of him. I know you know him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Everybody my age and younger knows him from Brooklyn
There's
Nine-Nine.
the gap right there.
There's hope.
And then he's also in a bunch of other movies. He's also in Primal Fear as well.
He's really good. And Frequency.
Frequency, you're right. Yep. John Finn as Sergeant Major Mulcahy from The Pelican Brief. Catch Me If You Can and Blown Away. He is a character actor, so you would recognize him in other stuff. He's probably been in a ton of like TV shows and episodes.
He's played a lot of Irish guys. I saw.
He's probably Irish.
No, he's not.
Finn?
Yeah, he's from New York.
Oh, maybe he's got the accent.
Yeah,
now.
he does a pretty good job. So when I saw that, I was like, oh damn.
There you go. Bob Gunton as General Charles Harker. He's from Shawshank Redemption, the warden, if you will. He's also in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, the bad guy, and obviously the ever popular movie Bats. Cliff DeYoung as Colonel James Montgomery from The Craft. He plays the father of Nev Campbell's character in The Craft. He's also in FX and The Hunger. J.O. Sanders as General George Strong. He comes in the end when the 54th volunteer. He's the one that's telling them how they're going to do everything. He's in The Edge of Darkness, The Day After Tomorrow, and Kiss the Girls. And then I've got a couple people here that are, I don't know if you've noticed them in there. Bill Nunn was in this movie. I don't know if you saw him. He was one of the people, probably members of the 54th. Do the Right Thing in New Jack City. I didn't
notice him.
Mark Margolis, who plays the 10th, that unit that is they first fight with is from Connecticut. It's the 10th Connecticut.
The fight.
So he plays one of the soldiers that when they're arguing, he is more notably, he's in a bunch of stuff, but you might know him from Scarface. He's also the landlord in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective in the beginning. Yep. And then Jane Alexander's in this movie, but all her scenes were cut.
Oh, a lot of them were cut. Yeah. Not all of them.
Well, the beginning when she's like,
she's in the party briefly and drag
his mother. Mother. She is a 4-time Academy Award nominee. She was nominated for All the President's Men, Kramer vs. Kramer, Testament, and The Great White Hope. So all those actors out there that get their stuff cut and they can't get their break. Even Academy Award nominees get their stuff cut. So I thought that was interesting. And one we'll get into everything else. I'll just do one quick note from facts. This movie was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. It won 3: Best Sound, Best Cinematography for Freddie Francis, and of course, Best Supporting Actor for Denzel Washington. And you got no argument from me from there. So,
nope.
All right. So real quick, we'll get into what we think about the movie. I'm going to tell you right now, Butler, I loved it when I first saw it. I've loved it ever since. And I loved it after I saw it again. So I got no problems. But I'm curious in terms of where you'd like to start off with this film, what you want to talk about. Performance, score.
I mean, let's talk about the score, I guess, because that's where we started talking before. It's probably one of the best scores of the 90s.
Well, it's a score that's used in trailers.
Yeah, as soon as this came out, every movie that needed like this big inspiring music in their trailer would use the theme from Glory.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic, phenomenal theme that I think serves the film really well.
Mm-hmm.
And you build up to it. I love the way that it's, you don't really, the first time you watch it, it's whatever, because you don't know it's got this big theme that goes on. But when you actually watch it after in subsequent viewings, you notice, oh wait, when they start training,
It's in the beginning.
you start that. You get a little at the beginning, and then they start training. They hint at the theme, the motif starts going in, and it builds and builds and builds and builds until the very end. And I think it's just really fantastic the way it's done. It's a phenomenal score, and it's really, I think, inspiring and probably something that I think inspired a lot of the scores that came out in war films from then on. I think seems to borrow a lot of that kind of motif, a lot of that kind of mood, and the way it works. In like Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, films like that, all are very similar in terms of how their scores work ever since Glory.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a score that if you heard it, like just out in the world, you were walking around and you heard the score.
Yep.
I mean, for me, I know that's Glory.
Yep.
So like I said, it was using the trailer for Backdraft that came out, I think a couple years after that, or maybe the next year. And I know it's been in other stuff.
Yeah, it's been in a ton after that.
Yeah. So it's definitely, it's a score that adds to the film, especially towards the end that you're talking about when they start walking towards the Fort Wagner. And you just hear the score going, and it's building up, and then they start charging, they start running. He's like double time, and then the score kicks in. You're just like, Oh yeah. But what's funny is that they run up, the score's going on, they run up, and then they get into those dunes, and they have to wait for night.
Yep.
And then you have at the end when the score kicks in, and I'm going to ask you this, if you think this is probably, would you consider this one of the more iconic shots of film history, is when Denzel Washington, when Tripp grabs the flag after Shaw falls, because Shaw goes up and gets shot and killed, and this flagman falls next to him. When Tripp grabs the flag, because you find out in the beginning, when Shaw goes, if this man falls, pointing to the flag guy, pointing to flag carrier. If this man falls, who will pick up the flag? And he's looking around, and and he has a conversation, I think maybe like 15 minutes prior, when he talks to Tripp.
Tripp doesn't want the job.
He doesn't want the job. He's there to fight because he just wants to kill rebels. He just wants to kill the Rebs. He's not fighting for his country. He's fighting for himself.
Right.
And he's like, don't ask me to be he asks him to be a flag carrier. And at the end of the movie, he grabs the flag, turns around, he yells, "Come on." And then the music kicks in. Like, would you consider that like that's
Oh, absolutely.
a serious contender for like one of the more iconic shots in film history?
That's absolutely iconic. That is when you try to remember Glory, that's probably the first thing that pops into your mind.
Definitely, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, that moment is inspiring. That's what the whole film leads up to.
Right.
Is that moment where Tripp takes the flag, and now he's fighting for something more than himself. Now
he's fighting for the people around him.
Yeah, his brothers, which is what he says in the scene prior to that, right before they attack.
Yeah,
but like that is definitely the iconic scene. That, and like I think the poster image, just the red and blues of the night, the way it's colored, I think is also very iconic.
When it gets to when they're
at night in Fort Wagner, I think the coloring of that scene is very interesting and unique.
Yeah,
and very much something that I remember with Glory is that coloring in that scene.
I think it's good too, also with that night scene, because the whole movie in and of itself, and Zwick says that they dirtied up the movie. So like they had a fog machine that was on set,
clear out any blue sky and stuff like that. And
they would have it on, so because he wanted the movie to be dirty. He wanted to be, grimy and whatever.
Yeah, it's not a good time.
Right. So then at the end of the movie, when you have everything going off and all the fire and all the mortar shells and everything happening.
Yep.
Maybe it was not the intent, but it does produce a nice contrast with what the rest of the whole movie, the look of it was, compared to what you saw at the end of the film. It really makes the end of the film pop even more.
Yes.
Because
you're not used to color. All of a sudden, you get all this color.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was absolutely phenomenal.
So they shot this film on February 9th, 1989 to April 27th. They had 10 week shoot, which coupled that with the $18 million budget, I was like, wow.
When you said 18, I knew it was a 10-week shoot. When you said 18 million, though, I hadn't looked that up. That's impressive.
That I just like, I can't. I mean, but when I think of it, they spent a lot of time there in that one location getting trained. It is dirty. It is grimy. It's not a movie that is going to lend itself to be slick or sleek or kind of look like it's got a lot of production value into it.
That and a lot of the Civil War reenactors they had a lot of reenactors who did it, and they didn't even get paid. They just were in the film.
Right.
So they got a lot of free labor,
Well,
probably a lot of free outfits.
Yeah. So the first fight, the Battle of Antietam, which was the first where you met Shaw.
Yep.
And it's an extremely bloody battle. It's one of the bloodiest of the Civil War.
Blow somebody's head off in the first shot.
Well, and that was on purpose, because the note I had was that Zwick did that on purpose so that he would get everybody who's watching the movie and basically tell them this is going to be gory. It wasn't, but it was. But it's war, and
yeah.
So, so that battle, the Battle of Antietam, they used footage from the 125th anniversary reenactment of the Battle of Gettysburg, which had like 15,000 participants that took place in that. Would you ever do that? Would you ever do a Civil War reenactment?
No,
I don't get that.
I don't understand how it works.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I don't get it in terms of like, wow, they're dumb. Why would they do that? I don't get it because I just don't understand why you want to commemorate, especially on the side of the South, why you want to commemorate that moment in history. I don't understand, and I'm saying that with all sincerity.
It's a matter of pride for them,
I guess. Yeah, and that's just something that, like, if someone sat down and was like, "I'll tell you what I think," I'd be like, "All right, I that's really just like a discourse I would love to have, because I just don't understand. I don't get it."
My thing is like, all right, we're gonna shoot you now. You're gonna lie down, or is it just, hey, let's do it, but you got to make sure our side wins?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't understand how it works. The mechanics,
the
like
South wins.
the mechanics of a reenactment when they have 30 people in a park, I still don't understand. Let alone 115,000 people. I just don't understand.
15,000, yeah.
For the most part, it's LARPing. I mean, you're in a camp. You're trying to reenact that part. I get that. That's like going to Sturbridge Village or whatever.
Yeah. Or Wilmington.
Yeah, but then you get to the fighting part, and it's just how do you figure that out?
Not Wilmington, the town in Pennsylvania with a W.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't.
But
remember
I can't.
the name of it. Yeah. Well, so the inaugural battle, the first battle that the 54th fight in real life and in the movie, is at James Island, South Carolina. They shot that. That battle took place on July 16th, 1863. So it took place in the summer, but they filmed it in February. And they filmed it. They were in like near Savannah, Georgia. They weren't even anywhere near South Carolina, and it snowed while they were filming it. So they had to have heaters come out to melt the snow, which I thought was interesting, because couple that with the Christmas at camp in Redville scene where they're on and camping,
which was March,
they shoot that in March, and they had to actually bring snowblowers in to blow chipped ice onto the ground. But my point of bringing up that battle was one of the things that struck me with that battle, because the 54th comes and saves the 10th Connecticut's neck there. The walking up fire, and they're just walking close, like it's like me and you right now, like almost like that distance, and they're just like, fire, all right, bayonets. Like, oh my God, so formal.
That's it's my third note when I'm doing it, even from the Battle of Antietam. Ah, yes, straight line fighting. The idea of not lining up to die hasn't been invented yet.
Oh my goodness. I know. At some point, no one's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's like World War I was the first time, or not even, because they still made trenches. Like World War II is the first one, was like, we could like surprise them from the side.
Well, two things. One, the guns back then are not great. They're not like, they're wildly
reload faster,
wildly inaccurate. But number two, the scene at the end with Fort Wagner, they talk about at the end how they never took the fort, which is not entirely true. They did kind of take the fort.
They did end up because the South left it.
The South leaves it because their water supply gets contaminated with like dead Union soldiers. But my point was that they actually built zigzag trenches leading up to the fort.
Yeah, as they're dying, they're trying to like slowly zigzag their way up.
Yeah. So they did do that trench kind of warfare that you were talking about a little bit.
Yeah. Now about the fort.
Yes.
This is my only thing I don't know if I like about the movie.
Okay.
That it's almost certainly a miniature,
and
it really looks like a miniature.
Really, you thought so?
I did not.
In the wide shots.
In the wide shots during the day when they're showing the mortar shells going off of it, and then they switch to that side shot. I just it looked like an old Godzilla miniature. I wasn't a big fan of it.
I don't think it was a miniature though.
I think the wide shots on the daytime beach might have been.
Maybe I don't know. I didn't notice.
I wasn't a big fan.
Okay. Well, the fort's not there anymon Erosion has ruined the
I guess
fort.
it's underwater now. Yeah.
Yeah. So the tides are rising.
I live on the beach.
Do you know some of the Civil War reenactors who took part in the film did it for no pay? They volunteered and did it for no pay.
I did.
Are you kidding me?
Because I mentioned that already.
No. But I'm sorry.
They did it for free.
I thought you were talking about. I apologize. I thought you were talking about the Gettysburg people because that's their own thing.
Oh no, I'm sure they also didn't get paid.
Okay,
but yeah.
Then I don't.
But yeah,
to that point, I don't.
That's not crazy to me.
That's crazy
because
to
they
me.
love to reenact.
Yeah,
So it's like you want to reenact where you're going to have a huge audience?
Come
They're
on.
probably like,
Look,
yeah.
Did you think people watching that movie were like the big takeaway? They were like, I want to be a reenactor.
No, but I think the big takeaway for the reenactors were this is cool. Now I'm in a movie.
I'm in a movie. I'm on the wrong side, but I'm in a movie.
Well, some of them were Union soldiers doing it. On the wrong side. I will say this. It wasn't just a miniature I didn't like. I wasn't a big fan of Broderick's affected fancy voice.
Well,
It did seem forced.
Well,
at times.
let's talk about the performances. One of my notes about Broderick was that I liked him in the movie, but I don't love him. But
Mhm.
here's the thing: he's coming from a wealthy family.
Oh,
an
I
elite
understand
family
that.
in Boston. That's how he's going to talk. That's how he's going to. I mean, that's not. I mean, do you really want something where there's a shift in the way he speaks? Because there's a good stuff in the movie when he's talking to Forbes about you can't like when their friend that they had growing up, which was Andre
Tom, you
Braugher's
can't talk to
character.
the unenlisted men. I
Right,
get that.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like his performance. I think he gets a lot of flack for his performance in this, which I don't think is deserved. But the affected voice, I'm not a big fan of because it just seems to kind of come in and out. It seems like he's trying real hard to do that voice, which maybe affects his
I
performance
think that's
slightly.
his voice, though. He doesn't have to do an accent. He has to do I don't want to say elite accent, but like talk like proper.
He
Like, you know what I
talks
mean?
proper, but then he
Yeah.
talks like this, but then it drops. So he then he really tries to do it though.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Is the difference in his accent or the way he speaks, does that change over the course of the movie or is it back and forth?
It seems back and forth.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Even at the end when he's speaking to Tripp or at the end when he's getting in front of his men to charge.
He definitely has moments where he doesn't use it, which is more conversational,
Mhm.
which is fine. But when he does use it, it's definitely like he's not used to it, which a person in his stature would be used to it.
Okay.
It just sounds like Broderick's like, I got to make sure I sound like this. Whereas Cary Elwes as Cabot Forbes doesn't have as heightened of an affected accent,
Right.
but he does still use a heightened voice or way of speaking, but it doesn't seem as forced when he does it.
Well, he seems like somebody who just has a good time and he's joining up because his friend joined up. You joined up the fight because that's what everyone else did, but he's somebody who would just rather be like, you know, like my note is that even in Civil War times, Cary Elwes is still a cad. That's
for
the
sure,
kind of
yeah.
character he is. So it doesn't get at no point do I just towards the end of his character, because he's always just kind of like, hey, I'm here. And then he gets yelled at one time by Shaw. And then Shaw basically tells him that you need to, what was the thing when he tells him he's got to do? He's got to hit him or strike him or something. It just seems his Forbes character changes a little bit to understand that this is what they're doing is serious. Do you know what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah. That Shaw is training them for battle.
Yeah.
And Forbes is just like, these men will never see battle. And
That's
it's just, you
See,
know.
that was the thing too that I wanted to know if you thought that if they never saw battle, like would Forbes have been okay with that? Like Shaw's always the one pushing to fight.
Forbes absolutely have been
Yeah.
right. They actually cut a scene toward the end of the movie where Forbes goes into Shaw's tent and tells him he doesn't want to charge the fort because
Yeah.
he doesn't want to die. He thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
Which absolutely makes sense. I don't think Forbes wants to hang out.
Yeah.
He wants to chill with Tom, which he's not allowed to do. He's not allowed to talk to Tom. He just wants to hang out in the camp. He's okay being away from the action. I think at the beginning of the film, we see that Shaw is very affected with clearly PTSD from his experience at Antietam.
Yeah.
And I think, but
And
we
that
also
one little
see
scar on his neck that they keep showing.
Yeah.
All right, we get it. He's got a scar.
Ooh,
Oh god, it's so tough.
ow.
That guy got his head blown off.
Well, I think that's shown when he's in the hospital and
Yeah.
they're repairing. Oh, that doesn't hurt, does it? And he's listening to the guy get his leg cut off.
You know what? Not to cut you off on your point. We'll get to it. I thought that scene was really good because what I liked about the scene was there's no music.
Mhm.
It was just matter of fact, and he's just in there, and the person's dressing his wound, and they're having a conversation, and he has to watch this guy plead for them to stop cutting his leg off.
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's terrible. I
Absolutely.
thought that scene was really done well. But go ahead to your point. I apologize.
Well, I think that's fine. I think we also see Forbes is also affected with his own sort of PTSD, like drinking from the bottle,
Mhm.
being okay being in the camp, not finding battle.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of fear. Because when we're in the Battle of Antietam, we kind of see Forbes being brave.
Mhm.
And then he kind of doesn't want to fight after that.
Right.
And then obviously once Shaw falls, then Forbes all like, screw this, let's go.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of them.
You know what's funny? Not funny, but your two leads are basically Washington and Broderick, is Shaw and Tripp. And they're billed as two leads, and they die before the ending of the movie. You know what I mean? Like they get shot on
Oh,
that
yeah.
hill, and then everyone charges. And that the end of the movie with a song where I don't think you think they're gonna make it, but they're charging through the fort, and the music tick up, and then they come to the end, and there's just rebels there with
That's just 100 more
and they
rebels.
just
Yeah.
fire cannons in the smoke, and you have to assume they're just dead.
Well, over half their regiment did die.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought that was interesting that like the two people that were your leads, they don't finish the movie.
That's
Like,
true.
They
Yeah.
don't have that.
They
They
don't-
don't have that heroic moment of charging through the fort. They have their own personal heroic.
Right.
Right.
They're the inspiration for the rest of the
Right.
heroism, which I guess Major Cabot Forbes is actually based on a real guy.
Yes.
Um,
He is based. Go ahead. You know that name?
No.
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
Forbes is based on Edward Hollowell,
Yes. Who I
Who-
guess survived.
who he leads the 54th after Shaw dies.
Yeah.
And Shaw is the only other real life person. Everyone else they kind of made up, obviously.
Right.
This
or
movie,
their amalgamations of.
Right.
Yeah.
This movie is based on a couple things. It's based on two books: Lay the Laurel by Lincoln Kirstein, and that was from 1973, and then One Gallant Rush by Peter Burchard from 1965, and then the personal letters of Shaw. So all that stuff when Shaw is doing the voiceover. And I know we talk about how we hate voiceover, but I'm okay because these are directly pulled from his letters.
I did like that. At first, my very first note in the movie is actually tell me you're a true story without saying you're a true story. Is that when it pops up with the letters of Robert Shaw? I'm like, but then he's like talking. I'm like, this is too preachy. And then I found out the actual letters are real. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because usually you get these characters that are like, Shaw led this regiment and believed in abolition and all this kind of stuff. And then you actually read the actual facts on, actually, Shaw was a racist piece of crap who actually earned 5 times more money for leading. And it's just like, well, that sucks. But in this case, like Shaw actually was this person and those letters are real, which is nice to actually hear that the good person and like the hero in history is actually, not a dirtbag.
All right. So they march down there and they get under the Bob Gunton's character, General Harker.
Mm-hmm.
They take the 54th and they're under him now, and he has to follow Colonel James Montgomery, and Montgomery is the one that leads the contraband soldiers
Because he's got a higher rank than
right.
Shaw.
So these are the soldiers that were freed slaves. That I guess it was Montgomery's idea that they band them together, and then they would go and help them fight. They're not technically soldiers; they're more of like
they're a militia.
Yeah. But so when they walk into that town and they're like burn the town down and they're basically just looting. They're looting the town.
Yep.
And they're just burning everything down. They don't care. They have the one moment where the soldier is fighting with the I guess the slave, the black woman, and he hits her, and Montgomery's watching her, and doesn't say anything, and then he starts hitting the white woman, and then he shoots him, and it's just a big thing. But in that when they walk up to the thing, Montgomery's line is secession has got to be swept away by the hand of God, like the Jews of old. It's like that is actually pulled from Shaw's letters, which I thought was fantastic that they used that line. And then, but when he said it, I'm just like, oh God.
It's super apparent that he's going to be your bad racist general, like right when he appears. Everyone's all well dressed and proper, but like the rest of them are all like blah blah blah, and then they see their racism come so casually. I get that.
Yeah.
But then when you see, and then here's Montgomery, and he's got wild hair, and he's like not combed over.
Oh,
it's just like
saw him. I know.
Dirtbag. I get what's going to happen
he's from
here.
Kentucky. He said he's from Kentucky. And
he even owned a
makes
few slaves.
Yeah.
He even owned a few myself.
You know that. But even like when they're marching, and then you've got some of the Union soldiers making cracks, dropping the N-word like crazy, stuff like that. That's it's. That I want to go back to that scene when they're looting, because they kept showing Shaw's reaction to everything,
right?
And they never really they went to like Rollins a little bit, which is Morgan Freeman's character. I don't even remember if they went to Trip too much.
They go to Trip just stands there. They do a lot of Rollins and Tom are basically who they focus on,
but they don't. They're just standing there.
I think that's the point.
That's what I'm asking you.
They're good solsoldiers.
Yeah,
they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do.
But there's no emotional reaction to what's happening. That's
I don't think so. Under the surface, I think there's a little bit.
I'm asking.
But yeah.
I'm asking you. Like, do you think that was on purpose?
No, absolutely. They're disciplined. That's the whole thing. Is that they've become soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
They've become a unit of actual, Union soldiers, and the rest of them are just even Montgomery. They're just animals.
Mm-hmm.
Abusing the situation, whereas these guys are trying to fight for a cause, and that's where that kind of contrast is right there. It's like, yes, that militia will never be able to fight or allowed to fight. That's never going to happen. But the 54th, those are just soldiers. Those guys are guys willing to do what needs to be done and are disciplined and ready to follow orders.
Yeah.
But I do like that Shaw is able to use that to his advantage to get the 54th into fighting.
Well, he finds out that they're basically looting and stealing and sending it all up north. They're just down there to
loot and pillage and
to
steal and
pillage,
plunder,
and they're not fighting in any major battles. They're just keeping quote unquote the peace. Which is probably something that I'm not saying probably always happens.
General, can I sit down?
So and then he says they got proof of it. There's really no it's just basically one conversation. I've got proof. I want to fight. Sign me up.
Yep.
That's all they want. There's no investigation. There's no what's happening here.
I'm okay with that because it's going to be a 2.5 hour movie.
No, I get it because the movie is all about the 54th leading up to the end. 54th not proving themselves, but fighting, wanting to fight and getting to fight for the Union. No, so I understand that. I wanted to ask because we're going through some of the performances and I'm saving the best for last, but I wanted to ask you about Thomas and what did you think of his progression of boyhood friend of Shaw? Just kind of like go ahead. What did you think of that?
It's tough to watch Thomas.
Yeah.
But it pays off in the end. I think one of the best parts of it, you get a little bit of Tom, like you kind of go, oh shit, man, come on. When Shaw's talks to Forbes and says, we don't talk to unenlisted men.
Right. Well, you meet them first time at the party. He's like, I heard you're going to run.
They're all friends and they're buddy. He's all happy.
Consider I'm your first recruit, that kind of thing.
And then Shaw and Forbes you can't talk to the unenlisted men. And you're like, oh, Tom. But then it seems like Mulcahy is taking it hard on him that he's going to be like this. Oh, he's this racist piece of crap. He's just beating up Tom. But then Shaw pulls him aside, talks to him about it. And he's like, is your friend? You notice he's a boy? Let him grow up.
Grow up together. He's like, let him grow up some more on his own. Yep.
And he does.
Is a great line.
Tom needs that.
Yeah.
Tom's thinking it's all fun and games. He's going to be this guy. He's black and proud and stuff like that. But he doesn't know what it's like out in the world. He's not tough. He's not ready to fight. He'll get killed if you don't treat him a little tougher.
Well, he's educated and he gets a little bit of that blowback from Tripp when they get into the tent at the beginning. Yep. And you just it's just a different experience that Thomas had than a lot of other people, a lot of other African Americans.
Which is nice to have that character in there because you get that dichotomy going.
You've got a little bit of a back and forth, which is good. There's the Mulcahy line I really like. I like John Finn's Mulcahy because I didn't think when he came in, I didn't think he was racist. I just thought that he was just hard. He's training them. Right. He came in to do a job and he was a soldier.
Which he kind of shows when he's like, you guys not know your left from your right?
Right.
And then they all raise their hand. A lot of them raise their hand and he's like, oh, okay.
And he even has that moment, and we'll get to it, when he has to flog Tripp, and they take off his Tripp shirt, and you see all the scars from him already being flogged as a slave. And and Mulcahy turns to Shaw like, you want me to do this? So I thought that was, but he never fought with them. He just trained them.
You see him when they're marching,
right? But that's when they're going off.
I don't think you see him in battle.
He's almost like he's just somebody who works at the fort,
at the thing,
the training set.
Yeah. Because he gets brought in by Shaw to train them.
Right.
Almost like maybe he was part of Shaw's training to begin with.
Right. So the Thomas stuff, that scene with Mulcahy, I remember. I also remember when Thomas gets shot, which is in the arm, but when Thomas gets shot and he's like, and they're both telling him, you're going to go home.
He gets shot in the shoulder.
Yeah.
Which in the Civil War,
well, they're old. And any shot is dead.
Yeah, that's bad.
And he tells him, don't you? And he's like, oh, Forbes is like, oh, you get to. Shaw goes, I'm jealous. You're going to be home before I am.
Reading Hawthorne by a fireplace.
He's like, don't you send me home. Doesn't want to be sent home, which I thought was really cool. Yep. And then obviously at the end, when they charge, he's one of the. It's funny because the people at the end of the movie that meet their fate with the cannonball,
right,
are the people that were. They're not the leads, but they were the people that needed to be led to become leaders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To charge in. Like they would never charge into that fort into death, knowing what was going to happen on their own.
It took Shaw and Tripp's sacrifice to
which
get
I thought was very, very interesting and very cool. Cool in the sense of movie,
movie cool. Yeah, I got you.
Story element paying off.
One of the things I love about Tom, which I did notice this time watching it, I didn't notice the first time, is that in the right before the cannonball scene, I can't remember if it's prior to Tripp and Shaw dying or after, he uses the move Mulcahy used on him with the bayonet. And I was like, he learned.
Yes.
And I thought that was a big payoff there in the fight.
He uses when they hop into the fort.
Yeah.
He uses the same technique that Mulcahy knocks him down with.
Yeah.
Hit me. Come on, stab me. Don't try to poke me. Yeah, that stuff.
I thought that was really cool. I was like, yes.
That pays off. That's a small character arc in the writing that pays off, which is like, that's what needs to be done.
Excellent. Yeah.
What'd you think about Morgan Freeman? He did all his own stunts, by the way.
I saw
that note. I'm like, what stunt?
Well, jumping off. I mean, he's still in his late 40s doing this when he's
true. I guess.
I get, which is different than late 40s today.
Right. I guess Freeman used a lot of his experience with the Air Force.
I read that, which I thought was interesting. You're not in basic training. You never become friends with anybody,
Right.
but you use power structure to kind of get with people that you need to get with.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. I liked Roland's character because he was kind of a mix of Tom and Trip. He was mature, disciplined.
He could have been somebody that he saw himself in Trip maybe years ago, like when he was
Someone
younger.
who could have been Trip, but now has learned.
And he has that
appreciate more.
great moment with Trip when he slaps him.
Oh, his line is awesome.
He's been sitting the entire movie just listening to Trip talk, listening to him ramble and rant about, because he's angry. Trip's a very angry person. He listens to it constantly. And then finally, when I can't remember what was the inciting incident,
he's about to fight with Tom.
Right.
He wants to fight with Tom.
Yes.
He's waiting for Tom to hit
and
him.
then he slaps him, and Roland Freeman gives him this monologue that's just kind of like, oof.
Well, because Trip, he slaps him as soon as Trip calls him the N-word.
Yes.
Because he's never called Rollins the N-word yet.
Right.
And Rollins just goes, whoosh.
Yeah, hits him, backhands him.
Yep.
Backhands him. And then it's like,
I don't know, you're so angry, you can't see anything.
So let me jump from Freeman to Washington, because he's phenomenal in this film. Phenomenal. And in that moment, like, he is doing everything in his eyes.
Yep.
The shock of getting hit by Rollins, the shock of somebody talking to him that way,
Putting him in his place,
being dressed. Yeah. Like you could, like, it's somebody, the fact that it hurts him, he obviously respects Rollins. And you know what I mean?
He's never been told the truth before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to talk about the flogging scene.
Oh,
It's horrible. He goes off to get shoes, and because he talks about how, like, oh, they've got shoes, they'll feed me, and they catch him. They think he's deserting, but he goes off to get shoes, and then you find out later, after he was flogged, that because that's the punishment for trying to desertion. That we need shoes, and then at least a Shaw going to get shoes, at least to a good moment.
Right.
But it's funny because they never really rectify that with Shaw and Trip. Never have like this moment where there's a reconciliation of that flogging decision. But I don't care.
Because I don't think you want. It's inconsistent with what was going on.
Right. So Trip takes off his shirt. You see the scars of him being whipped when he was a slave. Everyone,
it's a ton of scars. Everyone's shocked.
So within the movie itself, Zwick talks about how there was major tension. It was like, he talks about how it's palpable between the actors during that scene because they were doing this on the grounds where these things happened back in the past. But they obviously went along to it. And he was being lashed. I don't know if you saw this note, with a special whip.
It won't create lashes, but it still hurts.
So it won't cut his back, but it stings you. But he was being hit.
Yeah.
And so they're hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. Before Zwick stops, before he's going to say cut, he hesitates to say cut before the last lash. And that's when you get Washington with a tear down his cheek.
Yep.
So thank God he did not say cut, because you would not have that moment. Because that moment is just like, there's a lot of stuff going on in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing is tough to watch.
We talk about, of course, as it should be. It shouldn't be. It should be tough to watch. You get
the same reaction that everyone, when he takes off his shirt, you have the same reaction. You have the same reaction as Forbes.
Yeah.
Basically, of, do we have to do that? Is this really the punishment we have to do?
Right.
With them?
Right. Because Forbes turns around, doesn't want to hear it. I understand what Shaw is saying in terms about this is the army.
It's not about slavery. This is literally the Articles of War. Yeah.
I get that. I get that.
Which you see in Shaw's eyes. He doesn't want to do it either. You can see
nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants it. But like, I love the fact that he's just staring at him. And then I'm talking about Trip. I'm talking about Washington.
Yep.
We talk on this podcast all the time about how awesome we think Denzel Washington is. It's like, watch this movie. it's like if there wasn't, he deserved this Oscar, which is he is ridiculously good in this film. Ridiculously good. It's just like, I'm trying to think like what he did up to this point. Was this his first big? Because he was probably in like things. Because I know he was in.
I mean, he was already in St. Elsewhere by now,
right? So
which is where he really kind of started.
Well, you knew he was good. People probably knew he was good.
But no, this is his first breakout movie role.
Yeah, but like when you're watching this movie, it's hard to not sit there and be like, holy, because he does this movie, and then I want to say that Malcolm X is.
He does Malcolm X a couple years later.
Is 91?
92.
92. So yeah. Yeah.
He has a few smaller films, and then he's Malcolm X.
Yeah, he's phenomenal in this film, and it's like I can't get enough of how really good he is in this movie, and I just thought the whole movie's fantastic. But I would imagine, I'm sure everyone listening to this has seen this film, but if you have not seen this film in maybe 20 years, 15 years, it's been a while.
It still holds up.
without a doubt, go back and watch this movie. It is so good. It is so good. But anyways, I wanted to get through all the performances, and I wanted to say Washington for last because I knew it was just going to be me going, oh my God, he's amazing. Which it was. I did not disappoint.
He's really good. All the characters are really well done. They're all kind of slice of life. Everyone's a little different from Jimmy Kennedy's character of Sharts and his stutter. And like, he's a little naive. Tom, who's naive in a different way because he's just brought up a learned man, a free man in Boston who thinks his life's so great, but he's kind of never been out in the world to see what it's actually like, what the rest of the world would treat a black man. Rollins kind of the wizened Trip. And then even Forbes. I really like Forbes' character because you get the sense at the beginning that Forbes might be a racist when he talks about colored soldiers. Who would have thought? Like,
well, I get the sense like maybe it wasn't as meaningful to him in the beginning,
right?
And then it became meaningful to him because, you know what I mean?
I think it quickly became meaningful for him. Yeah, as soon as he sees how the actor or the actress, the other performers are.
Well, he's friends with Thomas, just like Shaw's character is.
Sure.
So I mean, I would think that he has that same affinity.
Yeah, but sometimes you see in films you get like that take place back then.
Yeah,
you know, you get that one, you know, black character that they were friends with growing up or whatever, but then how they treat the rest of the world and like they see him. But with Forbes, you kind of get the sense that it's not like that. He sees how much it means to all these people.
According to Edward Zwick, that Broderick and Elwes didn't get along.
I saw that. This is Broderick when he was still young. He was a little bit of I mean, nobody thinks of it now like that, but he was a little bit more like a wild child back then.
Really? Ferris Bueller?
Not like a wild child, but, you know, he had like a streak of stuff, right? Where people didn't get along with him. He was a little hard to deal with.
I don't know. I never, maybe. I
thought I'd heard
really?
That.
Like, because he was just kind of like out of control?
Not out of control, but like he thought he was
the best.
Well,
I get that.
Something
guess.
like that. Like a wild child was.
Maybe it's just two alpha males kind of thing, you know? But like, honestly, them not getting along is probably good for the movie because they don't really get along in the movie.
Yeah.
So
they're friends, but then, all the scenes you get with them, they don't get along.
Yeah. When we get those notes all the time about people not getting along. But I get a couple of the notes I wanted to talk about was that Broderick claimed that he didn't have to act during the battle scenes because he was scared of all the explosions they were igniting lycopodium powder was used to simulate shell bursts during the scenes, and it just basically this thing ignites instantly and puffs into a naked flame. So it's like just they were using some good stuff here.
Yeah, the whole time they're running in the thing, you could see. Well, Broderick's got his sword up in the air. You can see him like trying to make sure his footing's okay, running on the beach, which I get because everyone behind you, even if it's rubber, has a rifle with a bayonet on it.
Yeah.
It's like everything's gonna poke you in the eye.
So let's say that this movie is made now. Do you think that it's all CGI?
It's all CG.
That's so just not tangible when you're watching a movie. You're just kind of like,
It's all like that copy and paste.
Yeah.
There's like maybe Sean Forbes, 8 black actors, and then those same, maybe the back 4 of those black actors who aren't your mains are then copy and pasted. In different
when they
positions.
were running on the beach, when he walks through them as he kicks off his horse and Shaw walks through.
Which actually happened, by the way.
Yes.
Shaw did actually leave his horse knowing that he was probably going to die.
Yeah.
Left his horse around on the beach.
And he walks through the 54th to lead them. Like there's like at least 250 people there.
Oh, there's a ton of extras. Yeah. It's more meaningful when there are actual people there than when everything's a far out shot and you can't, which we mentioned when we watched Last Samurai.
Yeah.
Even though you can tell a couple of the actors aren't really touching each other when they're battling, it means more to see all these people. It's more impressive.
Well, yeah. Think of like Braveheart. Think of a movie like Braveheart and all the people that were there. See, it's not like when for me, when I bring that stuff up, it's not me saying I'm an old man. I wish they would do it back how they used to do it better back in the day. It's not that. I've seen how they used to do it and I see how they do it now. And I got to tell you, I prefer how they used to do it. I mean, I don't mind CG, but when it's used to replace something that it kind of adds a little bit more of a phoniness to your film, like this, I don't like this movie. This is Civil War. I don't need it to look like Avengers Endgame. You know what I mean? I don't need that kind of fakeness. I want it to be, and I'm not saying no one has done this. I'm just saying I don't want that. I want that. If somebody comes out, and I'm sure they will make Civil War movies still again. When one comes out, I hope they don't go CG mostly. I hope it is, people.
There are still things in that CG can't really replace and can't really do. I will say that there is some CG in the scene in like 1917 when he's running and everybody's charging out of the trench.
Yeah.
Some of that is CG. but it's
Yeah.
well done because you're still close up on an actor.
You're talking about the end.
At the end when he does that one long run.
Well, you see that scene in the movie. What they show you, they show that like how it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of it's CG. They have a couple actors and they copy and paste, but it's well done because it's close up. But there's so many times in battle scenes now where they try to fake the close. They don't do close ups because they're afraid of the digital actors. And if everything's going to be a far out shot, you don't get that visceralness of being in the battle that you get in Glory, that you get in Last Samurai, that you get in Saving Private Ryan. Being in the mix, even if you can tell a couple of background actors or whatever, or a couple of the rifles do, fall and flutter like rubber, which I noticed in Glory a couple times. It's still
kill people, man.
Yeah, it's still a better, more visceral kind of way to witness this battle, and makes you kind of like feel it more.
Would you say that this is the best Civil War film ever made?
How many other ones? I mean, Cold Mountain, which isn't really, it's him running away from war. Is the only one I can remember.
When I put Civil War movies into Google, I get Captain America Civil War. Go away.
It's better than, it's Glory is better than Captain America.
Then I get Little Women. I mean, are you kidding me?
I said,
guess
a lot of them,
war movie. Now, I mean, a lot of Civil War films are about
they're
not the war
adjacent,
itself. Yeah, they're about specific, like Hateful Eight takes place during this like post Civil War.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of, like I said, Cold Mountain showed a little bit of it, but it was him after he deserts
The Beguiled is more about them capturing that guy and
the one house. Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter doesn't exist. It's not real.
Well, there's a couple of scenes where the Gettysburg is in there.
Yeah, I mean, like you got to think like the Red Badge of Courage, like that's like a old book. Gettysburg you talked about.
Yep.
There was what was the one that they did on TV where it was about the fort where they had all the soldiers, like a concentration camp kind of thing.
Oh,
give it an A. One of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Antebellum. No.
That's
no.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We probably Dance with Wolves, but that's also kind of like in the.
That's post Civil War.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of this stuff is post Civil War.
There's a lot of post Civil War stuff.
Yeah.
Outlaw Josie Wales is post Civil War.
A lot of westerns are like that because everyone goes out west to make their money.
To get away from what was going on.
Yeah, no.
So yes, by default, this has to be, but it is still amazing.
There isn't. Yeah.
It's a tough subject matter.
Oh, it absolutely.
It's Americans killing Americans.
It's absolutely tough.
It's the reasons for the fighting.
You can't not do it. You can't ignore it.
You can't ignore the fact that it's part of our history.
Of course,
it's a terrible part of our history that
you got to learn from it.
Yep.
I don't know why this is turning into a lesson. Do you think because I remember watching this. I don't think I watched it in school. I think I watched it either on video or because
1989 you would have been.
But I'm wondering if they even show this.
13,
Rated R, so they
14?
probably can't. They can't show it in school.
Well, funny you should say that.
Go for
They
it.
created a PG-rated version that cut out a lot of the violence and blood. That has a opening commentary by Denzel Washington, which I do kind of want to watch. I want to see if that's on YouTube. I should have. And then it's also got a introduction by Montel Williams.
It should be. Quite honestly, if it should be shown, especially in history classes,
it should be. I never watched. I watched Last Samurai in my Eastern Studies class, which I had seen it before. But I never saw Glory in school. I saw Glory because my parents had the VHS, and they were like, "You should watch this movie. It's really good."
It is really good. Well, so why are we saying it's forgotten then? You did say you were gonna tell people
why it's forgotten.
Unless you had more stuff to talk about.
No, I mean, I talk about this movie all day. It's phenomenal, I get you. I think that you look at Denzel Washington movies, and I think this speaks to how good he is. He puts out an excellent movie every year. He just puts out so much good stuff, and this is so far down in his lexicon.
It's not a lead.
It's also not a lead.
Billing,
it's not.
It's not a.
It's not his movie.
Yeah.
necessarily. I think no one's going looking for Matthew Broderick stars, which I think hurts it. And I think although Glory is phenomenal, I think war movies after Glory also started to get very good. And I think you have stuff like Saving Private Ryan. I think there's like the HBO miniseries Band of Brothers, where war movies have kind of gotten better and become also bigger as well.
Well, World War II is no war is romantic or glorified, but World War II films, there is a definite romanticism to them.
Oh, sure. In
terms of stories.
There's so many.
And there's so many because there's so many different angles to do. I think
World War II is also easy because you have a good guy and a bad guy.
Right. You have evil and the good.
It's
absolutely
the easiest word to cover.
It is because you have clear and defined, who's good and who's bad. The Civil War is, like we talked about already, is very difficult to do but I would think that while it's difficult subject matter, I would think that also adds to a lot of
makes
drama.
it juicier. Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. But I think that also hurts it because everyone's looking and interested in World War II. I don't think there's a lot of interest in the Civil War. And I think there's a lot of...
It's also an older war.
Yeah.
It's 1800s. It's not like you can do even Independence Day movies, Independence Day, no. Revolutionary War films, there's 1700s. Granted, probably gets more because it's about America.
The founding of America. Yeah.
So that's why, but everything happened in the War of Independence led to what you had in this film. So
it's true.
It's all connected. But maybe because it's an older film, I mean, what else would you think acting wise?
The performances are all great. It's just, I think it's a lot of big stars who have gone off and done other big movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It definitely is forgotten. And I think a lot of people my age and younger have not watched Glory.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tough subject matter keeps it away from school. Even if there's a PG version.
Right. It's not Zwick's in terms of making it look dirty and making it look grimy, not wanting it to be blue skies. I mean, maybe that's why people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just an older film. It's what, 30 years old?
30 years old. It deals with tough subject matter, not just of Civil War, but racism in general.
Sure.
You're dealing with,
But that's all. But there's tons of movies that are like that now. But they're more modern.
They're more modern. Yeah.
This is more like deep seated, racism or bigotry that is almost like at the beginning of or the formation of the country and where it was. And probably more people are modern day sensibilities probably want more modern day storytelling, something that they can relate to, in life now. So maybe that's it. But this is definitely a movie that but no, I don't know about high school. I don't know if they're allowed to watch rated R films in school. But as you said, they made a PG version. I would think that this would be a movie that if you were a history teacher, you would want to show.
I've watched a couple of rated R movies in history classes.
Yeah,
and,
but that was
sign,
years
a
ago.
waiver.
Yeah,
that was years ago.
You know what I mean?
Too,
who knows what it's like now? Which is probably good. We shouldn't know. We're too old. Unless we work it. Unless we're teachers.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get that. I think it's just kind of older and forgotten and not. People should go back and watch this. And if you love film, you should go back and watch this.
Oh, totally. This is in terms of not just subject matter, but in terms of filmmaking and in terms of storytelling.
Like you said, everybody gets their own story arc. Yeah. Everyone gets a little rewarding moment, like Tom at the end with the bayonet. Mm-hmm. Rawlins, leading the charge and getting his sergeant stripes. Tripp's whole thing. Everybody gets, something.
Yeah.
Although I guess a lot of Forbes stuff got cut for Cary Elwes.
A lot of stuff got cut in terms of
which he wasn't very happy about.
Well, so it's not.
But it happens. It's not. The film isn't about him.
It's not about him. And I don't have the note here. But I don't know why I didn't write it down there, but I read it, was that one of the things that, obviously Zwick being very, being obviously a white man, being a man of Jewish faith, was a little bit hesitant to do this movie.
Right. I saw that.
Yeah. So he didn't know if he was the right person to tell the story, but I guess he got a lot of feedback from, like Freeman, a lot of the other actors, basically, no, we
trust you.
Good to do it. Yeah. There was basically definitely a bond there. But they also they were cognizant of not making this a story where Shaw is the hero, where Shaw is the one that is the reason for why the 54th is the 54th,
right?
Why they're successful, and that was something that they had to work on,
which they don't. And if you watch this, because I'm watching this through a 2022 lens, where I was trying to look for that, that white savior kind of thing, and it's in there a little bit, but it's not as prolific as some other things that you might watch.
I don't have the quote, but it was Freeman who says, and I'm paraphrasing that. While you're cognizant that you don't want it to be that story, Shaw is a part of that story because of what he did for the 54th.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So you can't tell the story without Shaw. You just have to be careful not to be like, it's only because of Shaw, like that kind of thing.
You can't present him as a shiny golden god kind of thing.
Right. But he's part of the 54th story. Like this movie was first, I said it was written based on 2 books, but it was the screenwriters' inspiration was that there's the monument at the end of the movie, at the end credit, they show this plaque. Mm-hmm. It's this monument of Shaw, and he's marching on his horse, and you see the soldiers behind him. That is in Boston Common. That is it's the 54th Regiment Memorial, and you can go see it now. It's up there.
Yep.
He was there, and the writer saw it, and that kind of inspired him to tell the story. So it's history. That's the thing. It's you can't ignore it. You can't ignore that part of history. And I think they did a really good job. I obviously, because I've been talking glowingly about this film for the last however long we've been talking. So I definitely think this is a movie that should consistently get revisited. I mean, we're obviously huge Denzel Washington fans here, so we're gonna just kind of like drool over his performance.
I mean, everybody. I think Andre Brauer was amazing as Thomas.
He was, yeah.
It's tough to watch Thomas go through what he goes through.
He has a little. It's almost like his story arc is a subplot, is a sub arc, and it happens not in the background, but it's not really like he's not the focus. The focus is Tripp and Shaw, and even Rollins to some extent. They're probably like, it's like Shaw, Tripp, Rollins, maybe
I think
Thomas.
See, I think those three affect Thomas. So I think Thomas is definitely behind them because it's their arcs that turn Thomas. Even Tripp's arc turns Thomas, because I think that's the final piece to Thomas's puzzle when he sees Tripp talk when they're doing the little thing at the end in the tent. When they're doing the song and they're going through preaching.
Yep.
I think Tripp's final, words to the crew is what actually is the final piece in Thomas's puzzle of his character arc.
Yeah, nice. Well done. Where can they find us?
You can find us at ForgottenCinema.com or ForgottenEntertainment.com, as we are part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. While you're there, check out all the other amazing different podcasts that we have there.
I only laugh because of his delivery, not because
You can also find us on Spotify. I've been told that YouTube is a very important place for podcasts now by my co-host. So go to YouTube, like, rate, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff.
I'm all over that Good Pods now.
Go to Good Pods, I guess. I don't know what that is. All right. That's us.
Sweet. Now normally I would tell you what we're doing next week, but I forgot to bring up this one point. So did you cry in this movie?
Like 3 times, yeah.
Give him Hell 54.
Oh, a lot, yeah. The whipping scene always gets me. Give him Hell 54.
Yeah.
When Tripp brings up the flag.
When he turns around and grabs.
When he grabs the flag at the end. Yep.
I didn't cry. Maybe got a little wet, teary-eyed, but I didn't cry.
Tear up, yeah. It's not like weepy. Yeah,
you weren't like tears weren't coming down your cheeks, were they?
No.
No, give him Hell 54.
I think I cried the first time I watched the movie. I think I cried harder.
Probably.
Because I had never seen it before. I didn't know what was going to happen. This time, even knowing what was going to happen, you still tear up a bunch of times in this movie.
Definitely give him Hell 54 is awesome when they're marching to their death, basically. They're marching, for those who don't know, they're marching to getting ready to charge for Wagner.
They're essentially a distraction.
Right. Pretty well, yes. Because but they weren't the only ones. Like in history, it wasn't just them that charged.
There were a couple of platoons.
It was the 62nd and the 67th Ohio regiments, who were white regiments that charged with them, but they led the charge. But they're charging the fort so that they can keep them occupied while they start
bombing them from the other
all
side.
All that stuff. They had to do it. But when they're marching to get into position, they're surrounded by all the other regiments, which are all white regiments, and they're all watching them go basically off to death. And and one of the guys that we talked about at the end yells, "Give him hell!" And they all start yelling and screaming. It's like, it's awesome. It's an awesome scene. But anyways, yep. So now I will tell you. Next week we are doing a movie that's really cynical. We're doing Neil LaBute's 2003 The Shape of Things, starring Paul Rudd. I forgot for a second who's in that. And I think Rachel Weisz is the girl. You never saw this?
I have never seen this. I know of it, but I've never seen it.
Did you ever see the other one he did? I always bring it up and I forgot it, with plays the DA in Batman, the Dark Knight one. Aaron Eckhart. Eckhart, when they date him and this other guy, date this like woman who's deaf.
Yep.
What's the name of that movie?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I can't believe I forgot that. I can't believe I forgot that. Darn it. But anyways, it's like that. It's movie's really mean, but I like it. Although I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm hoping that it holds up for me, because it's almost 20 years old. So geez, we're so old. That's next week. The Shape of Things. We're getting right back into the swing of things. And that's all I got. So I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema.